r/AskReddit. What is an easy to learn skill but is very impressive? Home repairs. With YouTube and Home Depot you can fix most household's issues yourself. And patience. Impatience is what killed the IKEA shelf. Keyboard shortcuts. It doesn't matter what program you're running. If you learn the shortcuts you'll look like a wizard to a casual observer and at least competent to everyone else. Here's a few good ones. Control plus arrow key. Jump cursor to next word. Windows plus shift plus S. Screenshot a portion of the screen. Alt plus tab. Switch to previous window. Control plus tab. Cycle through browser tabs. Tab moves to the next option. Username, password. Next link on a page, etc. Shift plus tab moves backwards. Control plus left click or middle click. Open a link into a new tab. Holding shift and pressing any movement key, arrows, home, end, will select everything in that range. Folding a dollar bill into a little chart. Teach me? Shit, I got euros. Reading Korean. There's a YouTube video called Learn to Read Korean in 5 minutes, and after watching it a few times, I can now read Korean. Very slow, but better than nothing. But what about understanding Korean? 3D programs are getting easier and easier to learn the basics of. Try Blender. There's a huge community online and it's essentially an open sourced version of more expensive and prohibitive programs. So it's free. There are tons of tutorials and a blast to play around in. Plus it's not that difficult to get something nice looking or to put 3D text in your photos. You'll look like a genius when it'll only take you about an hour or two watching a few tutorials and playing around in the program to do some pretty rudimentary things. Perfect fifth roots from 1 to 1 billion. You only need to memorize 9 numbers and an easy formula. You only need to memorize 9 numbers. That's 1 less than all the numbers. Basic lockpicking. Also most car repairs. Belts, batteries, brakes, oil changes. My uncle taught me this in a few days. It's surprisingly easy is what makes it scary. Solving a Rubik's Cube. Takes a few hours work if you have a guide to use. Lots of online tutorials. And people are weirdly impressed by it, but once you know how to do it then it's not nearly as complicated as it looks. We had a bulk order of Rubik's Cubes in my old office and there must have been 40 of us who got obsessed for a couple of weeks. Managed to get it down to under 4 minutes and I felt like a ducking king. Knowing Morse. Knowing his code is also somewhat impressive. Knowing the Russian alphabet. Not even the language, just the alphabet. My wife seemed impressed when I could unclasp her bra and garter with one hand. Not sure if it gave her the impression that I had great sexual prowess or simply shocked her that I had undone 30 minutes of work in 5 seconds. Cooking. Not just the food prep of cooking, but timing it so everything is done at the same time. Not hard, but I don't think even 10% of my extended family has mastered it. An alarming number of people never bother to learn how to cook, so you can really impress someone with a bowl of homemade soup, or even better, bread. I'm at culinary school and I'll tell you, if you can make bread, you will have no shortage of friends. Too bad I haven't taken any baking classes yet. Building PCs. It is not difficult at all and people are blown away when you tell them you can do it. The fun part of most electronics is that it's just a really scaled up version of that kiddie toy where you drop shapes into the similar holes. Doing tricks with your pens. Like spinning them in a lot of ways and stuff. Yeah, it's kinda stupid but I think it can catch the eye of a lot of people at school. Whistling and humming at the same time. I just sat here like an idiot on the toilet trying to hum and whistle at the same time. Eventually got both sounds to come out, but neither were pretty. Chuck your keys in the air and catch them behind your back. Chuck your keys in the air and catch them while fluidly sliding the correct key into the lock. Do it by secretly having the correct key separated from the rest of the chain and keeping it in your hand while tossing. Cross-stitching. Really, nothing easier than stitching X's on a gridded fabric, following a clear PDF grid, and yet, the result looks amazing and people are impressed at your skill when really, it's all about patience. The disappearing thumb trick. You will blow kids' minds for decades. Juggling. Card tricks. Easy to learn and impresses folks. Be the life of the party. I read this as juggling card tricks. Smile at others. Smiling is hard. I always end up looking like the basic guitar chords G, M, D, C, M and A only take a few sessions of practice to get used to, and you'll have millions of songs in your vocabulary that use those basic chords. Memorizing the alphabet backward. You just have to turn it into a song and you can do it in no time. I'll see if I can try to text out the cadence. Zyke swat. Pause. SRQPONM. LKJIHG. Pause. FEDBCA. I needed to learn it for a bit I wanted to do. I struggled before. I just worked on singing it and not trying to work out which letter came before and then needs to come after. Learning the world map and knowing all the names of the countries of the world. Calculating the day of the week for any date. It's one formula and every year has a different doomsday. The face of someone when you're planning dates is amazing. Could we do the 17th of December? Semicolon, that's a Thursday. Sure. Not being an a-hole. That takes years of hard work, dedication and endurance. For the strong-willed. And that's only if you're born with the fortitude to do so. I recently bought a 3D printer and have had a lot of fun impressing people with free things I found online. Knowing where and how to hit the G-spot. Seriously people, just research with actual sexuality resources. Take your time and tailor. Someone will never forget you. Knitting. Especially knitting socks. It's not as hard as it looks, and rather than requiring patience, it teaches patience. People are always so impressed when I'm walking or talking while knitting away. Learning the alphabet of another language is a really good way to trick people into thinking you know the language. Examples: Russian, Cyrillic, Arabic, Hebrew, Korean. PS. I didn't include Chinese or Japanese because they're way too hard to learn. Knowing how to drive a vehicle with a manual transmission. My dad insisted I learned on a standard vehicle because it meant I'd always be able to drive anything. Men are always impressed that I'm a lady that can handle a stick. Towel origami. I can make a headless chicken carcass. Ladies love a headless chicken carcass. Basic guitar skills. In my experience, it is absolutely insane how little skill is needed to impress people on guitar. Not saying or like in between thoughts words in a sentence, even if you just pause before your next thought, or whatever you're saying isn't even that insightful. Not using filler words like that makes you sound 100x smarter. This sounds like good advice, but it's dubious. Hesitation markers serve a useful purpose in conversation. They indicate that the speaker is formulating a thought, rather than signaling that they are done speaking as pauses do. Pauses that seem very short, 50 to 100 milliseconds, serve as discourse markers in many dialects, and cue the other person that it is their turn to speak, which is not surprising, in one sense. Hesitation markers, etc., are found in all spoken languages. If they didn't serve a useful purpose, they would have disappeared from common usage by now. You can see why they're important if you watch an oscilloscope monitoring sound while people speak. In normal conversation, the wave goes flat only between speakers' turns, not while one person is speaking. That said, of course, if you're throwing an between every pair of words, you are also not effectively communicating. Not a linguist, but I listen to a lot of lingthusiasm. Basic woodworking. Being able to make some small but useful things. Feels good when people say, "Where'd you buy that?" It looks nice, and being able to reply, "I made it." Cardistry or XCM, extreme card manipulation. Shit takes a few YouTube videos and a few hours of practice and looks like you're a magician. You can do cool card cuts when playing any game involving cards and makes you look intimidating. Shit's real easy, though. Showering. People who can chop slice in the kitchen fast and nicely blows my mind. Makes me want to buy better knives. A different language that it is pretty similar to the one you normally speak. For example, learning German as an English speaker. That's a good idea in theory, but English German isn't the best example because English grammar is highly simplified as Germanic languages go. I had an easier time learning Spanish. Spinning a pen on your fingers. Coding in Python. Python can do anything, just badly. Michael Reeves. Real whipped cream is way more impressive than it ought to be. At minimum you need heavy whipping cream, sugar, a bowl, and an egg beater or an immersion blender with a whisk attachment. First chill the bowl and the beater. Put them into the freezer for a couple of minutes while you get out the other ingredients. Then use half a cup of whipping cream and 1 tablespoon of sugar, or just eyeball it. Run the equipment until it's whipped cream consistency. You can lift up the beater and it makes peaks. Takes about 1 to 2 minutes. That's it. Scoop and serve. Gourmet whipped cream is super simple too. Start with the basic recipe and change to brown sugar. Add a dash of vanilla extract. To keep it holding its shape, add a teaspoon of unsweetened gelatin. Grilling a steak. Knitting and crochet. After a decade of doing both of these, I'm still an advanced beginner and people are constantly going, wow, you made that? It looks so complicated. The Esperanto language. It has consistent grammar, consistent pronunciation spelling, unlike English, and can be learned very quickly. Since it's spoken all over the world, it's a cable to anyone from across the world. Cooking people are often blown away by a meal that's literally cooked in 30 minutes. Sleeping within 5 seconds of your eyes closing. That's not an easy to learn skill though. Drawing is really easy to learn, but I think that most people don't realize that, so that's why it's still very impressive. Public speaking. There will never be a moment where you won't need it. There are many ways to practice it, and in the end you can do a variety of different things. Your confidence will go up. You will be able to improvise more efficiently and be able to speak your mind better. Bro, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content. It's free and that's a great price.